Hello, everyone.
Hi, welcome.
We'll get started in a few minutes once we get more people in.
In the meantime, you can take our poll to find out more about why you're here and what was interesting to you about this session. You can send a text to 22333 and text the words Amy Bucher, B-U-C-H-E-R, 783 to join, or you can join via the link that we just put in the chat box if you prefer. Let us know why you are here and what you're interested in doing during this session. We are also wanted to remind you that we'll be doing some prototyping later during the session. So if you were able to participate beforehand, you can gather your materials, or if not, you can take a quick second to see what you have around you. We will also spend some time on this later, so you don't need to do that right now if you don't want to. Again, if you have a chance, please text this information. Our session today is for 6th through 8th grade educators. We did a similar session on a similar activity for 3rd through 5th last week and have that information on our website already if that grade level is better fit. But this is focused on 6th through 8th grade.
And I would say that if you're near to 6th to 8th grade, so if you're in 4th or 5th or 9th, that it's still going to be reasonably informative for you as well. So stick around and do the activity if you'd like.
So it sounds like somebody is looking for design challenges for middle school through virtual learning. Great. That hopefully we will be able to cover that for you today. That's the focus of our session. We will be doing some information about how to do this in a virtual setting, as well as how to do design challenges for this age level in general. And again, we will be doing some prototyping during this session, so we'll give you some time later to gather these materials if you haven't already, but this is what we're going to be doing today during the session.
And with this materials list, it's a lot of stuff that you might be able to find in your recycling bin or in your junk drawer. So go ahead and, if you have a box, a cereal box, or some sort of other sort of food container, some rubber bands or twist ties, maybe some packing material from a package you just received, that would be enough for you to participate in the activity, and then some kind of ball. So any ball that bounces a little bit, bouncy ball is best, but also some other things like, a ping pong ball or a tennis ball would work as well.
And if you don't have any of the materials, you can feel free to listen in and participate with what you have on hand when we get to that section. So we have some teachers who are looking for design challenges from virtual setting. We have some people who are looking for more ideas for their maker classes, and somebody with an architecture background who's interested in teaching design thinking. So great. Any other responses to our poll? You can add them via the Poll Everywhere link that we paste in the chat box. If you need that again because you just joined, we'll add it again in a minute. You can also text 22333 as well if you prefer. This session will be available to watch later if you are not able to participate now. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna share my screen again.
And after Amy gets her slides up, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. I want to let everyone know that we're recording this session, and we'll email out the link as well as the slides and some other resources within a couple of days. So look for that. Again, we're recording this so we can share it out with you and other colleagues who couldn't join today. My name is Erica Barwetto, and I'm the Senior Director of the Bowers Institute at the Tech, which is the branch of the Tech that's really focused on creating resources for educators, taking things that we do in the interactive, in our museum space, activities that we design, and sharing them out with you all so that you can implement them in your classroom.
And
go ahead, Amy.
Okay, I'm Amy Booker. I'm a professional development specialist with the Bowers Institute, and I've been doing design challenges in a variety of settings from high school to elementary school and in between. And I'm excited to talk to you all today. Some of our session goals for today are to do a design challenge, share your creations, get some facilitation tips for in-person and virtual implementation, and discuss some techniques for themes and standards that align with these challenges.
And our colleague Allison is also with us. She'll be throwing some things into chat and might be answering your questions, as well as sending out the follow-up email. So.
Yes, hello everybody.
And just a reminder, we are recording this session, so we will be able to share it with others later on our website. We are inviting you to participate later, but we just wanted to let you know that we are recording. Okay, so our agenda today is to do an overview of what is design challenge learning for those of you who might be new to it. Do a design challenge will be the majority of our time today, and then we'll cover some techniques for 6th through 8th grade throughout the session, and also some strategies for doing all of this in a virtual setting. And we'll follow up at the end with Q&A, but please use the chat feature or the Q&A feature at the top of Zoom to ask questions throughout. We encourage you to let us know when you have questions, and we'll try to respond to them as we go. Okay, so we're going to start really briefly with what is design challenge learning. So at the Tech, we've been doing design challenge learning since before we had a building. It's part of our Tech Challenge. And for us, design challenges are challenges that use real-world problems to engage learners in an iterative design process. We've developed our own graphic for the design process and image of it, but for us, the innovation design process at its core is this imagine, create, test, and reflect, which learners move through at different places depending on where they enter. And then on the outside, define your problem, and sharing solutions are the more metacognitive pieces of that. We've also defined some innovator mindsets that we believe are essential to this process, and we've sort of put them on the outside of this graphic as well. So you'll see some of these icons and words as we go throughout. They're just our reference points for this design process. So some of the key features of design challenges are that it's solvable by multiple solutions. So when learners ask, is this right? You would say, well, what would be right? Because there will be no one correct answer. You might have learners who come up with everything from a boat to a car, and that those might all solve the problem correctly. Or you might also have multiple opportunities for iteration similarly, so they're testing and improving on designs throughout the process. So that question of, is this done? Similarly would be, well, what is your definition of done? What are we saying is done? What are our criteria and constraints that we've defined for this problem? There are always opportunities to encourage learners to go further if they feel like they're done in ways that they can continue to test and improve. We believe it's really important to connect with participant interests and to also make explicit connections to the real world, problems in the real world, and careers that they might encounter there.
So with design challenges, they're, again, as Amy said, open-ended, and they're also lend themselves to being very interdisciplinary. So where can you make those content connections? I'm assuming that many of you teach science, but there's also the opportunity for design challenges to really be connected with any content area and any subject, and to reinforce and help build the skills for those content areas as well. So when can you connect with content? You can bring the content in before you do a design challenge, using the design challenge then to reinforce that previous learning and to reference that to build context. So for example, reading a nonfiction book on space travel, and then doing a design challenge that can incorporate that perspective and context. So reading something like Hidden Figures or the Rocket Boys October Skies book can provide some inspiration and context for the design challenge then that the students do themselves. During the challenge, that you can bring in vocabulary and explore concepts, in this case of the design challenge we're doing today, around force and motion, as they're sort of experiencing those ideas and experiencing those concepts. So very relevant. It comes up, students use a word or they explain the concept, and you're introducing the vocabulary word and delving into that during the session, as well as after. So you can do that design challenge and really use that to pique the interest of students, have that be the exploration, and really lay that foundational layer of prior experience for all students, and then go into those science concepts around force and motion more deeply with some science content learning. So those content connections, again, come in sort of two different realms, framing the challenge, as well as then when they're doing the challenge, reflecting and sharing their solutions. So for framing, we've found that science and social studies content is really good there. So using core content from those areas to give the design challenge a real world scenario, and also to help create some guiding questions to support the students thinking through the criteria and constraints, and really developing an idea of what success would look like with that design challenge. When they're doing reflecting and sharing, that's where English language arts, NGSS, math, other science concepts and vocabulary, as well as social emotional skills come in. So everything from writing and argumentation to collecting and organizing data and using equations, incorporating those science concepts and vocabulary, and practicing creativity, collaboration, and perseverance. So another way to look at it, again, in reference to that innovation design process graphic we have, is that you might be using science and social studies for that real world context when you're defining the problem and introducing that to students. And then using argumentation, persuasive writing, math, and science vocabulary when they're testing and reflecting and sharing out solutions especially. And using those social emotional practices and science vocabulary when they're imagining, creating, and testing and reflecting.
Okay, so now that you have a little overview of what design challenges are, let's experience them. So we're gonna model this for you. We will frame and introduce a challenge. We'll all have a chance to prototype, imagine, create, test, and reflect. And then you're gonna have a chance to share your solutions with us and debrief. So to begin, we would like to know which of these topics is most interesting to you all. You can, again, use that Poll Everywhere link. We'll put it in the chat again for those of you who need it, but you can also text 22333. Are you more interested in Mars exploration or an emergency supply drop? Or perhaps a skyscraper snack delivery? Which of those topics seems most interesting? So we've got a large vote for Mars exploration at the moment, but it's getting close on skyscraper snack delivery. Oh, and it's speeding up a little bit on emergency supply drop. You can use the chat link. Oh, so far we're getting skyscraper snack delivery. So I'm gonna go with that one. I guess everybody's feeling the quarantine push right now.
And Amy, someone had a question about, can we explain these a little bit more? So when we're framing a challenge with our design challenge, you'll see what that is in a second, but we like to give a real world context for it. So the three we think match with our design challenge are around exploring Mars, so having to launch and land something on Mars, delivering emergency supplies, so doing sort of a supply drop somewhere, or delivering our slightly whimsical one of a skyscraper snack delivery. So if your friend on the 12th floor wanted to deliver you a snack on the 5th floor, how could they get a snack safely down to you?
Yeah, so we're doing a quarantine skyscraper snack delivery. So the next question is, what are you delivering? So if you can respond via the link again, what do you think you would like to deliver in this challenge? So somebody says a milkshake, somebody else says cupcakes, Um, think about what kind of item you would like to deliver to somebody on the bottom floor. Thai food, ice cream, ice maybe, hamburgers, and things can get upvoted if you text them more than once, they'll get bigger. So we can end up on something that way too. Popcorn, nachos. We got more votes for cupcakes. Somebody really likes Thai food. Okay, boba tea. Oh,
That might be a difficult one.
the beverages I think will be more challenging in this one because you have to make sure it doesn't spill on the way down. An egg. More votes for cupcakes. Okay, so I'm gonna let you all decide what your item is personally. You can each decide what you are delivering in the challenge as you go. But you can, we're gonna start with these sort of guiding questions. You can imagine this on your own, but think about if you were gonna sketch or write this, you would think about a way to drop your payload and have it land without breaking or being ruined. So if we are delivering cupcakes, for example, what would it be a way to drop it and have it land without breaking or being ruined? Or if we're dropping Thai food, making sure the noodles don't spill everywhere as they land, or the even more challenging ones of an egg or ice cream or milkshake.
So I was going to cut in, Amy, and say that I think that even when you have a whimsical design challenge, like delivering a cupcake from the 12th floor to the 5th floor, the ground floor of your skyscraper, that you can still make those real world connections. So that idea of that does still connect with sort of space exploration, things that SpaceX and others are trying to do with launching and having things land and recover and potentially come back, even landing on Mars rover, for instance. So there's still those kinds of connections, especially around those, and then in social studies around rescue, emergency delivery, other ways you might help your community. So those are things to keep in mind. A whimsical challenge can still make a real world connection.
Yeah. So we've just done a little bit of framing and introducing this challenge for you. We haven't gotten into the criteria or problems yet, but you can get a sense of what the challenge would be. So think now about your students in your grade level. What are some other guiding questions you might use with them based on the content you're doing or things that you think might be of interest to them? And again, you can use that Poll Everywhere link to just send in some of your ideas.
While you're thinking about those ideas, again, just that idea of how else would you help your students sort of scaffold and get ready to do this challenge? A challenge where they're trying to build a device that would help their snack survive a drop and delivery. So what might you connect with as far as content? How might you frame it for them, again, in the real world context, and then just get them imagining and ready to create.
So some questions about maybe who their end users are and what they are designing for. Some user-centered design.
Having the materials ready is nice, and even giving them an opportunity to look at the materials is a great way to get them thinking. Giving them a budget and having them consider that.
Yeah, with older students, sometimes the limitations of budget constraints or material constraints can be nice to add into challenges as well.
Imagining what could go wrong is great, and then having them think about it from that perspective. Maximum mass to deliver.
Somebody mentioned the egg drop. This is a very similar challenge to the standard classic egg drop, except that you can do it over and over again because we're not using an egg, we're using a ball. So it will not actually shatter and make a mess like your Thai noodles might, since we're using something to represent it.
I like there's two guiding questions here that, Amy, that really focus on directionality and then how to get the food back in the building. So most skyscrapers don't have windows that open. Or if they do, you might have to have a receiving device, right? I might have to have some sort of net on my end that you drop and I catch and bring it back in. And that also needs to help keep it safe. And then maybe you're delivering it not straight down to a neighbor, but over a little bit. So how might you add in an extra component of an extra vector, adding in an X and a Y.
Yeah, and somebody had a question that targets SEL skills as well, like how you work as a team to reach your goal. What are you doing to help collaboration? And some questions about, is this a one-time service or do you need to deliver again? So
Right.
do you need it set up?
Do you get the container back and then you're going to refill it, or what?
Yeah, are we recycling here? And does it work on other skyscrapers? Great questions, everybody. Thank you. So here we're going to get started on our challenge now. So your challenge, this is called Solve the Fall. You're going to build a device that will keep the payload. In this case, it's our food item, cupcakes. If you want to challenge yourself even further, milkshake, Thai food, whatever it is, safe when it's dropped. For this challenge, our criteria are that the ball and the device have to stay in one piece. So you're building a device and it has to stay with your ball. Your payload in this case is a ball, some kind of bouncy ball. If you can find one that lights up, it's even better because it'll tell you when it bounces.
So your food item is being represented by a ball, just to make it clear.
Your device that you build around your ball has to stay intact, and your ball can't bounce or light up when it lands. That's our indicator that, oh, the food was ruined and it didn't make it to the delivery. Our constraints are that you have 10 minutes. We're probably actually going to give you more like 7, but we'll see how we're doing on time to build and test. We encourage you to test as you build. And your ball has to be visible within the device because you have to be able to see if it bounced or lit up. And we're challenging you all because we're 6th through 8th grade, no tape or glue. So you have to try to do this without any tape or glue. You have other fasteners we'll go over that you can use, but not tape and glue. So as you're prototyping, there are a couple ways you might be able to start this challenge depending on what you've done so far. I'll let Erica go over these.
Sure. And someone was asking how you document your process. For today, you can take photos, you can take jot down some notes, make some sketches. We're going to have a group of you share out afterwards. So if you did make some sketches or take some notes along the way, that's great. But we'll also see what you built. During prototyping, if you're just getting started, you can find a few items. So if you don't have materials with you right now, it's okay to quick run to the recycling bin and junk drawer, grab a few things and see what you can create. You'll be surprised at what you can make in just a few minutes. If you have more materials, really thinking about what combination of materials might be most successful at preventing bouncing. And then really thinking about what components are working and what aren't, what components are not. If you've successfully make a device in the time we have, you can push it a little further to having your device land or go to a certain spot. Try some variables, increasing the height. So instead of dropping it from shoulder level, maybe drop it from your arm extended, or you could also try and drop multiple items at the same time. And some of you mentioned other things too, like potentially designing something to not only drop it, but also catch it.
And just a reminder too, these are materials that we're using. They're divided into categories here. So again, you do not need, this is not a shopping list. It's just some categories we suggest, and then you find the materials that will work for you. So for example, I've got rubber bands today to use with mine, and I found a couple sponges that I'm going to test as cushioning materials. I don't have any scissors or hole punch at the moment, but I have a bouncy ball that lights up. So those are my materials today. And
so people should.
So we're going to start the timer. Yeah, I was going to say, let's get started. So if you have questions, you can put them in the things. Bring in socks, for example, somebody says, that's great. I'm going to start the timer for 10 minutes. And while you're prototyping, we'll go through and prototype as well, so you can sort of see our process and give you some tips throughout.
And you can throw things into chat if you have ideas or you want to tell us what you're using. You have a question, please, again, don't hesitate, go grab some materials and get started. Amy and I are going to chat through what we're doing as well as sharing a few tips along the way. We'll leave the materials list up here for a few more minutes, and then we'll switch over to some questions that might support you during prototyping. Someone wants to share a photograph. We'll see if we can enable that for you.
Yeah, Christine, I'll figure it out if I can do that for you.
We have the most restrictive settings on right now, but again, during the sharing, we'll let people promote a few of you to panelists so you can share, and if it doesn't work now to share the photo, we can share that later.
Yeah, we will ask some of you to volunteer to share what you've built after prototyping is done. So we encourage you to be brave and share no matter what state your prototype is in. That's one of the things we encourage about design challenges, is that because there is never a done and final solution, you should share at any point. So schedule in sharing time and encourage learners to share no matter whether they feel like they finished or not, because oftentimes they have a working solution, they just didn't know it.
Yep, even if it's partially built. Or again, what can you learn from the components that might have not worked? So what can we learn from failure?
So you're going to test
straws. Wait, there's a technique question. Yes. Oh. I have a non-punchable straw because it's the big plastic one. But I would say that if you want a hole in just one side, then you can put it partially into your hole punch. Otherwise, squeeze it flat, and then most hole punches, standard hole punches, should go through most plastic or paper straws and still leave you some straw on the outside.
And we forgot to mention these are all options for connectors on the screen here, because we're not using tape or glue, rubber bands, twist ties, binder clips, clothespins, all of these kinds of things, or get creative with other items as well. So I think I have a thing ready to test, so I'm gonna see if it works. I'm not dropping it from very high to start. It looks like if I drop it this way, it doesn't light up. If I drop it this way, it does light up. So directionality matters on how it lands, and I'm guessing height might too. So I'm gonna keep trying.
I wonder if you can make that consistent then. If there's a way you can get it to always land on the side that works better.
Yeah. So if you, it sounds like somebody says they think they might have something that works. So again, you can try to push your design further. So what can you do to make it stronger? Is there another way to try to solve it?
Tracy was saying a triangular base. Or Trisha, yeah. I'm sorry, Trisha. Trisha was saying a triangular base.
Yeah, I saw that. I think that would, that might help solve Amy's problem of having it land and not move, or definitely will get it not to bounce like a ball will. And the prototyping questions here, you can take a peek if you can spare your eyeballs from your build for a second of, again, when students have something that's partially built, how they can test it, when they're problem solving, some questions, and then some questions that might push their design further to try and avoid the I'm done part of that. So I'm trying to build a triangular kind of thing out of 3 French fry containers, but mostly it's just making me hungry.
And remember to keep asking students questions throughout. We have about 5 minutes left, so we're almost halfway done.
It's more time than I thought. That's great. I think I can complete my design. Anyone else wants to share what they're working on in chat?
I don't have scissors, so I'm just tearing paper.
I don't know where all my rubber bands went. I wanted to make something that would sort of use rubber bands to sort of suspend this, but I don't have those materials, so now I'm going a different route. I think if I can get something to, a cushion of air, that might really help, because I've got this right now. I think if I get a cushion of air underneath, that would help this not.
What do you think could make a cushion of air?
I don't know. I have these. This might be a little rigid. Oh, there's bubble wrap. Is that cheating? It's amazing the things you can find from your chair.
We also have a video that you can reference later if you're interested about this particular challenge that goes through it and gives some more details on it and includes some examples of students prototyping.
Those are real middle school age students who were building and testing and engaged with the activity. So it'd be interesting if you want to check out what some students might build, then that can give you an idea of what they'll create.
And I will, I'll play it without the sound on right now, so you can sort of see it in the background if you're interested as well, to see what students are building. They have a test rig that they used in this that was a little more elaborate than just a hand dropping. So they have a clip mechanism from a ladder that you could build if you wanted to for reliable testing.
Yeah, using just a gate latch sort of to suspend things so you have a little bit more reliable, like Amy was saying, and you can use a carabiner or just a ring binder kind of ring in order to have that on each device. I'm done. I'm going to try it out.
Okay.
My ball lit up. My cupcake is ruined.
So somebody said they put their egg in a mask and used the ear clips on the side so that the mask and the contents didn't slam against the side with a box. That's great. Hopefully we can see it during sharing time. That sounds like a great, you're using a quarantine tool to deliver your quarantine snack. So excellent.
Can they keep the mask and the snack then?
Yeah. It's an extra bonus packaging.
Do we have a minute left? Amy, I'm concerned about getting
Yeah, we have a minute left. 1 minute.
All right. So I'm going to make the plug again for if you have something, we'd love to see what you did, and encouraging folks who maybe even if it wasn't successful, that you can still share your design. And again, what you learned from it not working can really inform not only your design, but your classmates as well, the other participants here as well. So be brave. Somebody asked what height we're dropping it from, which should have been in the criteria and constraints. I think
Yes,
we've said that in the Solve the Fall video, it was about 6 feet. So find out where 6 feet is roughly for you, and you can drop it from that height. I tested mine from about 4 inches and it didn't work, so I'm not going to go all the way 6 feet.
Somebody's trying to use a handle from a plastic bag to cushion the layers together. So let's, we're going to get ready to do sharing now. So I'm counting down the end time of prototyping. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you are willing to share, we'd love to have some of you share what you've built so far. You can raise your hand to share, and Allison will promote you to panelists so that you can share with us. So it looks like there's one person willing to share at least. If
so
we
once
can
you're,
have a couple.
oh sorry Amy, so once you're a panelist, you can do your video and audio, unmute your video and audio so we can hear and see. I can model first, Amy, on how to do it.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing in order for us to be able to see the gallery view so we can see everybody who's sharing. But as we're looking at it, we can.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Amy. So we're gonna do a gallery view first. So let's make sure people can turn on their cameras. And we can see what people have. Amy, if you want to hold up yours. Do we have more folks who want to volunteer? So we have a few more different devices to look at. And then, looks like Christine is going to join us. And for the folks who have joined us as panelists,
make sure you can turn on your camera.
Yeah, please try and turn on your camera. If you're having an issue, let us know. We ran into that last time. We had too many safety precautions set. So there we've got
Yay!
Trisha. Excellent. Adam looks like he's joining us. And Christine's gonna get hers. Super. So the group that's here, we can model how we're doing it. Allison, looks like there's another person who wants to join in. So the nice thing you can do over, again, as a virtual technique is just have everybody hold theirs up and really do a silent gallery walk. So making sure that everybody can see what you've got. We can see some cushioning devices. We can see some sort of suspension mechanisms. We can see a box and a parachute.
And a mask, yeah.
Looks like Amy and I went a cushioning route, but we went with things that look like it would make it land and not move around too much. Ooh, Hillary's got a basket and a parachute. Lovely, lovely. So that's one way you can do sharing, where people can just do a quick visual check and you can send them back to build. But we're gonna do a little bit more involved sharing today.
So for the next round of sharing, we'll just go one by one and have people share what they made, and then also tell us something you changed as you built it. Is there anything you changed? And then what you would do if you had more time. We did this really quickly, so what would you do if you had more time? I'm just gonna go based on who I can see first. So Trisha, if you wanna go first, and then Adam and Christine, you can go next.
Okay, hi everybody. My name's Trisha. I teach in the Bay Area, and my design, like I said, I was having difficulties with the triangular bottom because we have done the egg drop in the past, and so we came to find that the triangular base point was pretty good, but then the size of my ball was too large, so I kept trying to find something to keep it there. I noticed somebody in the room was an architect gone STEAM leader, and I was like, oh, I hope they share their ideas. And I'm trying to keep my dog from eating the ball, so that's a really big challenge for me.
Extra challenge. So how did yours work when you dropped it?
The whole device bounced, so I don't find it to be a failure nor a success, because.
All right, what are you gonna do next? How are you gonna change it?
I think I'm going to try and add a layer of space between the ball and the base, at least.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Adam, you can go next.
Sure. So I was one of those folks that came from something else right away, so I didn't have my materials ready to go. So I did a 1-minute run out to the garage, and I saw some fabric, tested that, just wanted to wrap it with cushion. So kind of did that in a 2-dimensional way. This is also a cat toy, which is the only ball we had, and I've got a cat trying to play with the cat toy at the same time. And then how am I going to pull it all together without adhesive? So I started looking around and saw a plastic bag on the floor and went, that handle looks great. I could use that as string, and just tore it off. But looks like fabric wasn't enough cushion. So then I went back out, and my wife was unpacking something that had bubble wrap. So yeah, that kind of feels like cheating. I agree. But I used it anyway, and I have a hard time telling, because it's like a cushy cat toy, how hard it's hitting, but it isn't bouncing at all. It like smacks and rolls. So I'm not sure it would work for a cupcake, but it would work for something else like that.
Thank you. And anything you would change if you did it again?
Yeah, I'd probably try to add something to keep it upright once it hit, because it kind of drops and rolls, and maybe something like a triangular base would work really well for that.
Okay. Thank you. Let's give people like virtual claps as we go, maybe. I forgot about that for Trisha, but thank you. Christine, you want to go next?
Yes, I don't have a ball, but I have a monster with balls in it. If you could see it, it has balls in it.
Excellent, yeah.
And I wanted to mimic a parachute as much as possible. I know it wouldn't work. This is what I could find. But I was able to do without glue. I used binder clips, pipe cleaner, and this. But if I could do something different, like when it falls, maybe experiment with magnets, like super magnets. So like just sit upright when it falls, like a magnetic platform, and put some magnets here, so I don't know, maybe experiment with magnets since this is metal, you know?
Interesting. I love the idea of using magnets and using those forces, incorporating that into the design somehow for a safe landing, some sort of magnetic cushion, right? When it reaches the bottom. Very cool.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anna, you want to go next? Oh, we had
Anna,
to
you're on
unmute
mute.
you. Can you unmute yourself? Oh, you're still muted, Anna.
You have to start from the top.
There we go. Sorry.
The rookie mistakes that my kids kept doing too. So I didn't know we were going to be needing all these materials till I came late. So I had my mask. I found a couple of binder clips. I had this in the garage because my kids in school had done some tinkering before. And so I had this still from that. Silly putty egg from tectonic plates modeling before. So put that into the mask filter bucket. And I couldn't get a big enough box, but this, and then drop it. And it works as long as it sticks the landing, but it could also fall over. So the box wasn't big enough. What would I do to make it better? Lucky for me, I'm not the first person, and I learned from other people, and I like the parachute idea. So I put a parachute on there, probably put more suspension points so that it's not like swinging like crazy. Make the box bigger, maybe even make it a little fewer corners. So yeah, something like that. Try it again.
That's great. Yeah, I love the idea of having something sort of suspended within a bigger container, so that it can, you know, move independently and maybe stay upright. That's great. Love the design.
Thank you. Great job. Hillary, you're next.
Hi. So I grabbed some materials from my recycling bin. So I have a strawberry basket and some like stuff that came with some shoes, just some paper all crinkled up. And I have my ball inside of there. It's kind of nestled in there kind of tight. And I used rubber bands as fasteners. Maybe you can see that. And this other thin kind of tissue paper that came in a package at parachute. I think it works, but I can't really tell because I don't have a light up ball, but it definitely slows down. It slows the fall down. I started with like a heavier container at first, and then I realized I needed to lighten it up. So that's why I went and got the strawberry basket. But I didn't have anything before. I just grabbed it out of my recycling bin.
That's great. Yeah, no, I think, let's give Hillary a hand. I think one thing that we've seen from this is really the lack of materials that you need, right? That with often we get that from folks of like, oh, this is so materials intensive, or how can I find the things? And we've actually developed a materials treasure hunt to help kids at home kind of think about that idea of like, grab something that is in this category, find something that's a box, a container of any kind, find some cushioning material so that you can really get creative about what you can use. You know, Adam, how you grabbed the strings, you know, the handles from the plastic bag, and like I can turn that into string, I can turn that into a connector. So your students will actually get more nimble at doing that and thinking about how to use materials creatively as they do more challenges. But also we just saw how every person sort of had a different perspective and was able to learn from kind of the previous sharing that folks did, and how during this we'd need to have, we'd also have opportunities to kind of bring in the vocabulary and some of those science concepts, right, as we're debriefing what worked and what didn't, and exploring that a little bit more. So thank you everyone for sharing.
Yeah, and we will, the material scavenger hunt should be on the Tech at Home website, which we'll share later, but we'll also try to share it specifically. There's a video and then like a bingo sheet that goes with it too.
All right, so thanks to our brave
thank you,
sharing.
everybody.
Yeah. And those who built but didn't share, good job as well. So we're going to put you back to attendees.
And we're going to go back to our slides. So this is just some information about what we just did, how you might lead it with students.
So in thinking about this, we can really debrief this in two ways. So as a participant, we want you to think about what prior experiences did you really draw from to inform your design, And then also, what concepts and content did you kind of reference during your design? So what things from science, art, history, math, any of those disciplines or others did you really pull from as you were thinking about your design? So we have a poll everywhere, again, for you to put those ideas in. I think, again, answering both questions, you can answer them separately if you want, but what did you draw from as you were building and thinking about these ideas?
So people were drawing from the materials themselves, the packaging that they had. Some folks were drawing from math and geometry knowledge. Some were thinking about the Mars rover. Some were thinking about their previous experiences with egg drop. We usually don't mention that word until students start on this project because they have preconceptions, but yes, physical education and sports equipment. Iterating on what they know from previous experiences.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, again, with the sports equipment piece, that's a nice real world tie-in as well, right? Like, how can you keep human bodies safe during contact sports? Thinking about, you know, from heads to elbows to other things. So what are some of the ways that they do that? And the fact that that's actually a job, right? People need to engineer those pieces of equipment. Origami, that's a great one.
Some perseverance was used during this session, it sounds like. Not giving up as it got frustrating. Gross motor skills and things you learned about how things fall. Great. Amazon packages. I know they debated dropping packages by drone. I think it's happening still. So maybe there's some real world context there.
Yeah, we actually have, there's someone we highlighted in our exhibits, and I think we can share out these videos with folks too, called Zipline, and they use a drone kind of airplane. So they launch these airplanes and then drop blood with parachutes to remote areas so that life-saving blood can get different places. So it's another physics conversations that you've shared about physics during quarantine. That's great. So again, there's a lot of great prior experiences that you drew on to really inform your design, and a starting point that you had to really get there and to get something at least to test. So we want to go from being participants to being facilitators. So as teachers now and thinking about this fall, we want to give you a chance and capture some ideas in Padlet for you to think about now and think about later. Allison's thrown this link into chat. Really, how, based on what you referenced and what other folks referenced in order to inform their design, how would that affect how you frame this challenge for your students and how you connect it with content? So I think getting creative now and having that sort of expansive moment for yourself in Padlet of how would I now take those ideas of what worked for me and what worked for others and turn those into guiding questions for framing it, as well as thinking about how I could connect with content. I know there's a great force and motion standard in NGSS, but what else? What else in how could you make it a little bit more interdisciplinary and also potentially connect with some of those real world examples and careers?
So we put the Padlet link in chat. Feel free to go on here. We'll leave this Padlet up for you as a reference later as well, but please add any standards or ideas you have for 6th grade, 7th grade, or 8th grade specifically, or even across the board.
And this is, again, another way that you can get your students to share. So we've modeled a couple things semi in secret during this webinar, right, of having sharing, the synchronous sharing on Zoom, but also what can you add in those other ways to capture their ideas. Someone mentioned during their build that they wanted to take photos and videos, and I think that's a great way to engage, especially middle school, in documenting their process. But then also having, you know, you've all used these in the spring, you know, shared places for people to put ideas and to run through those. Is everyone able to access the Padlet all right?
Can
Give
you
us
all
some-
see it?
Yeah, Trisha says it's not allowing her to type, and I think I'm having the same issue too, Amy.
Oh, no. Okay, let me check my
So
settings.
we'll check in on those settings. Meanwhile, you can jot it down on a piece of paper, because I think really having that time to kind of reflect about the process is important and get some of these ideas down. And there's no plus sign to add comments. So Amy's working on that. Hopefully she'll give us all access. Experiencing all of the same technical difficulties you guys did. Trisha had an idea she threw into chat. That's also another option. Giving a design task and selecting appropriate materials based on the specific properties and needs of the construction of your solution. Yeah, that's a great one. So that engineering, connecting directly with those engineering standards around selecting and using those materials. That's super. So it looks like we're up and running here now. Amy, is that true?
I just added one. I don't know, are people able to work now? Can you add anything, Erica?
Nope, it looks like
Oh,
it's still frozen.
Still not
us out.
working. Okay, well, we'll move on.
People can throw, I was going to say, people can throw ideas into chat. Forces, gravity and kinetic energy. Is there any other non-science related things that might also be a good connection for folks that people are thinking of? There were some geometry ideas that people were throwing out. You could have students plan a little bit more, make calculations about measurements and calculations that they might need to use in their design, as well as potentially having things, trying out bases of various shapes. It's great.
It looks like it's working now, so we'll leave that. Okay.
So feel free to pop in there and add things, folks, or as you have a chance. You can also check back in there later.
So we're going to move on now to some more content information and then some information about doing these challenges in a virtual setting.
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to mention is that there are, we're going to share this resource out later. The Next Generation Science Standards have an engineering progression. It's written out as a Word doc, as a list, and we've put it into a chart format just so you can see sort of how that tracks for different grades and what the development is looking like in different categories. So we've got the categories they have are vocabulary, and then skills in defining the problem, imagine, create, iterate, as well as sharing solutions and testing and reflecting. So I would say that this is a good reference point for all of you, just thinking about how to scale the design challenges and then where to push students in their design and in their conceptualizing of the design. Amy, if you want to go back one, I just wanted to take a look at the defining the problem. I think students can actually do a little bit more than what's here. So a simple problem with constraints that expand to include scientific language, and that the students are defining the problem and jointly agreeing on design criteria. I think they can definitely do this. This is definitely in the capacity of 6th through 8th graders. So I think that working off of this premise, right, you could have the students really define a lot of their criteria and constraints. And then with Imagine, Create, and Iterate, that they're developing complex models where they're looking at inputs and outputs being tested, obviously developing multiple solutions, I don't think would be an issue, and combining the best features of different designs, which is really where that sharing component comes in. We already saw people doing that during our sharing session of like, ooh, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. I'm gonna incorporate those into my designs, and this is how I would think they would actually help. And then optimizing performance, again, based on criteria. So I think these are all a great reference point for how you might want to focus the learning with an engineering design challenge, and what skills the students can really develop during that process. In a virtual setting, we find that it's really helpful to give students a few days to actually do the design challenge. So assigning it on a Monday or Tuesday, or even on a Thursday or Friday, and giving them time, a few days to really work with it and wrestle with it. if you're doing the first challenge of the year, I recommend doing a standalone challenge. So having it not necessarily nestled within all of your content, but having it be more of something where they're practicing those collaboration skills and just getting used to this format. And then you can incorporate them and incorporate the content later, make the design challenges more involved and make them more interdisciplinary as the year goes on, and have the students do more of the pieces themselves. Obviously, if we're doing virtual learning, that means families need a little bit of support as well. So giving them information about the materials, the process, and how to support student work, which in my mind is mostly, here's some stuff, here's some space, and I'm going to leave you to it. So having them actually have the students work independently, especially in 6th through 8th grade, but even sometimes incorporating how can the family be involved, right? So how can you compete with your parent? How can you both do the design challenge and see what you can learn from each other? So how to build in those opportunities for using the family to your advantage as an educator.
And we have some parent and educator guides that we have on our Tech at Home site. They're linked in these slides, which we'll send out later, but when you go to our website, you'll also be able to see those resources for virtual settings. So these are some more tips on how to do this in a virtual setting, using videos that sort of spark interest and finding ways to incorporate career highlights and connecting to the real world. When you introduce the challenge, finding ways to do both asynchronous and synchronous prototyping. So breakout rooms, if they're available to you, and shared documents can really help build that collaboration, even though they're working virtually. And then really encouraging them to use brainstorming, reflection, and journaling tools as well, whether that's online or even if they don't have those resources, writing them on paper and then sending photos or texts or things like that to share with you. And the journaling can also be a way to incorporate math skills and data collection, things like that. Sharing solutions, you can do it the way we just did in this session, where you have like a gallery walk, or synchronous sharing where everybody's sharing a little bit of time to share their solutions, or you can have students post things to the learning management system you're using, or something like Flipgrid or Padlet, and share what they've done that way as well.
Yeah, and I was going to say that it's 6th through 8th grade is obviously a great opportunity to really highlight careers. I think all along the way it is, but it's a nice time to really think about what careers would actually be involved with this kind of solution. So it might be people in healthcare, again, in an emergency response, in space exploration, engineers, artists, mathematicians, other folks. So it's a nice time to incorporate that into introducing the challenge as well as in wrap up.
And you can also bring in a guest speaker to have them share with. The virtual setting really allows anybody to come to your virtual, sharing session. Somebody from around the world could come and join you as long as you just ask them. So.
And then a few reminders for you of, you're learning and iterating too as you're doing design challenges and doing more things virtually or in a blended way, or however learning looks next year. So be flexible, vary your strategies, try different things, give students an opportunity to give you feedback as well, and then test and reflect. So think about what you're going to try next.
So we'll take some questions and answers. I know we're approaching the end of time, but we want to make sure we address any questions you have, so you can put them in chat or use the Q&A thing to ask them.
And while we're doing that, we'll share a couple links with you as well, so you can see them. Our educator resources, where we have lesson plans and some other resources that take you through different parts of the process. And then some parent and at-home at our at-home and in CASA sites. And then we'll share a survey with you as well. We had a question about a reasonable time for this is a week. Yeah, Trish, I would say that a nice amount of time is a week in order to do a design challenge with students. But if you want to do one as sort of a quick, get everybody excited, you could do it over the course of an hour, kind of like we did today. And we've seen that some of our friend educators in the field have done that, like with a 5th grade group, having all the classrooms do a design challenge and then share out just to sort of build that excitement and sense of community. So, but a few days is good.
We put the survey link in there. We're always wanting to learn, so please give us feedback on the session. Let us know how it felt for you as a participant. Somebody was asking what online brainstorming or reflection tools we've used. We can share some, but if anybody has suggestions, feel free to add them to the chat as well. We have used things like Padlet, like we just did with you all. Jamboard or Mural sometimes works, although it's a little more advanced depending on your age. You can also even use like a Google Slide or something as simple like that they might be familiar with, a Google Doc or a Google Slide.
Yeah, and being really explicit with students about when you are even, on Zoom, as you guys have done this year, but within those formats of how to add on to ideas rather than deleting other people's ideas. So when you are working in a shared doc, that's sort of an added piece. But a Google Slide is nice because everybody can kind of then make little boxes and make them kind of discrete, and then relate them with lines and links and that kind of thing.
Any other questions folks have?
We appreciate you all joining today. Hope everyone's having an enjoyable summer and taking some time off to relax and recharge.
Somebody's asking about student versus parent built projects.
Yeah, I think part of the way you can deal with that is really focusing on process versus the final product. So if you're focused on process and you want the students to share, I want to see all your iterations, and they shouldn't be perfect, right? So build for 5 minutes, take a photo, record that. Build for another 10 minutes, take a photo, record that. Then it's harder for the parents to intervene and build the thing because you're also trying to see the process. So I think that's part of it. And then also rewarding that, like, great, it didn't work. What did you learn from it not working? Versus someone's parent trying to make the perfect thing and being like, yeah, we get an A. I'm not grading you on this final product. I'm grading you on your process. I'm grading you on how you can talk about what you built, and you can talk about your process. So that's how to get around that. I often tell the parents also just to build themselves. So it's really cool if you want to make your own and send me a photo of that too. Any other questions or comments today? Really appreciate, again, everybody taking the time. Please fill out the survey.
Yeah, here's the resources again, in case anybody needs those.
And I will be following up with everybody later on this week with all of the links, the slides, the webinar recording, all of those things for you guys. So they're in one easy place for you to find.
Thanks to all of you for the work you do and for joining us today. The treasure hunt is going to be in the at-home resources, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
We'll throw a version over in the educator resources probably later on this summer, but for now, check in the at-home site.
And we are also launching this month of July little mini July challenges. So if you're wanting to test out some of these little mini ideas this summer, you can check those out. We're launching them on social media, and then there's also going to be a web page for the Summer Unplugged at the Tech.
Yeah, if anyone's still in contact with any of your students and families, you can tell them to encourage them to engage in those or engage in them yourselves. Thank you, Linda. Thanks for joining. Please also don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have more questions. Let us know how things went, if you tried something out, how you adjusted it. We'd love to hear how you've used these resources and how you've put your own spin and creativity on them as well. Allison's put our email address in the chat.